Last Sunday in the season of Epiphany, the Gospel was the account of the Transfiguration. Jesus taking his three closest disciples to the summit of Mount Tabor, and there something happened. Something happened. The description of it is that Jesus was visited, and there was among them the messenger who proclaimed Jesus to be the Savior, the Messiah, the promised one. You would think that Jesus would return from that ordeal, and it was an ordeal, that he would be just full of himself. And the three disciples with him would be even more so. And unfortunately or fortunately, when they descend from the mountain, Jesus, according to each of the gospel writers, set his face toward Jerusalem. Set his face toward Jerusalem. Each of the gospel writers makes it clear that this event that takes place on the summit of Tabor, this event is an affirmation of Jesus' sonship. He is God's Son who has come among the people to make God's presence known. And so he sets his face towards Jerusalem. In reality, it is a journey from life to death, to resurrection. And that's really what Lent is all about. We are on a journey, a 40-day journey, and we will, on that journey, recall the events that took place on Jesus' journey. But first and foremost, on this, the first Sunday of Lent, there is a reaffirmation of who Jesus is. And so we read that account of the temptation in the wilderness. That Jesus comes up out of those waters of baptism. There is the voice, either externally, internally, it makes no difference. It says, "This is my Son, in whom I am well pleased." An affirmation of who He is. Have you ever had that experience of where a parent has said to you, "You are my son, you are my daughter, and I cannot tell you how pleased I am to be your parent"? I think we all long to hear that. And unfortunately, it may be said in different ways, but that sort of face-to-face, "You are my son, you are my daughter, in whom I am well pleased." I was 30 years old when my father sat across the table from me and said virtually that to me. A day I will never, ever forget. What happens next with Jesus is that He is, with that affirmation ringing in His ears, we are told He is led into the desert. Really, it's the wilderness. It is not a desert as we think of it. It is a wilderness area. Barren, severe, dry most of the time. And it is in that wilderness then, and we are told He is driven also by this one who loves Him so much. And then He's there, we're told, 40 days. In Scripture you learn that whenever the term 40 days is used, it just means a long time. but by himself in the wilderness. And then he is tempted. The first has to do with hunger. The evil one says to him, "You see this rock? I can make it into a loaf of bread." And then begins the temptations. One of the things I want you to go away with is understanding temptations are not to do bad things. Temptations for Jesus is to do good things for the wrong reason. Turning stones into bread and feeding the hungry is a good thing. Selling your soul out to the one who makes that possible is the evil thing. Jesus goes on next from the idea of feeding the poor. There is that vision of what power can do. We love power. We love to have the power to make things happen. Sometimes that comes with wealth. Sometimes it comes with position. Sometimes it comes with elected office. The power to make things happen. Even good things. That's the temptation. So it's told a vision of the kingdoms of the world, and we can make that happen, and you can control it. Just think what that would do. Think of the changes you could make. The elimination of poverty. And again, Jesus says that's not who I am or what I'm about. Hunger, power, and then the last temptation, religion. Religion. Religion has been used from the creation throughout time to manipulate as well as to do good. Kingdoms have risen and have fallen, all hinging on the exercise of religion. Think of the Roman Empire, just as one example. We can use religion for good or for bad. And finally, Jesus renounces. We're told that in that gospel lesson we read from Luke that the devil departs from Jesus until a more opportune time. I love that. Until a more opportune time. We all know what temptation is like. And that usually opportune time is when we are at our most vulnerable. Whether that's through illness or lack of funds, whatever it is. There is always a more opportune time. And you notice also that the way Jesus is addressed by the evil one is, if you are the beloved Son. That little word, if. If you are the Father's Son. Just that word sows the doubt. If you think you're so good, or you are so talented, or you are so beautiful, watch out. Watch out. 3 temptations. Not one of them is illegal, immoral, or fattening. They're the same temptations that we know in various forms. But you and I also have something else too. It's that invisible mark on our forehead. That cross. Going back to our baptism when we are told you are marked as Christ's own forever. In the end, that's probably our only defense. Who do we belong to? Who do we belong to? The truth of the matter is that the only way you can lose your God-given identity is for you yourself to deny. To deny that you are indeed God's beloved child. That is your hope. That is who you are. That is you as a person. It's interesting that Jesus answers all of the temptations by quoting Scripture. Luke's the one who tells us that Jesus was raised in a family in which he learned the Scriptures. It is in Luke that we get that story of his bar mitzvah when he confounds the religious leaders with his knowledge. Jesus is God's person. And raised on the Scriptures, it becomes his defense. Notice that he didn't tell Satan to go away or some other thing. It's always quoting Scripture. That he knew the Scriptures and they became a part of who he was. We as parents and grandparents, we as godparents, assume that role, our duty to those whom we foster, that they learn the Scriptures and learn to live by the Scriptures. During this Lenten season, please read the daily office. Read the Scriptures. We've provided materials. Let them become a part of you as they became a part of who Jesus was. We are about to celebrate an anniversary, a 52nd year anniversary. On March the 16th, 1968, a young lieutenant in the Air Force was flying a mission in a helicopter. He flew over a little village in Vietnam, My Lai. And what he observed was something so unbelievable. He swooped in. There were American troops led by a young lieutenant, so frustrated with the war that they were systematically killing every person in the village. The elderly, the young, the children, the infants. He landed his helicopter. He landed in the midst of that company of soldiers, and they had to quit firing. There were 504 bodies on the ground. Men, old men, young men, women, infants. He helicoptered the survivors that he could round up to an Army field hospital. The lieutenant in charge of that company of soldiers, you may recall, was prosecuted. His name was William Cowley. 52 years ago. A few years back, Duke University did what most universities do. At graduation, they also hand out occasionally an honorary doctorate degree. And on this occasion, they called to the stage a young man to present him with an honorary degree. His name is Hugh Thompson. He grew up in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Working parents who raised him in a Christian home, but they raised him always learning Scripture, saying to him, make Scripture who you are. Make Scripture who you are. For his action in saving those villagers, Duke University made him a graduate, an honorary degree. At that graduation, Thompson was given the microphone, and he spoke to the question that was on everybody's mind: how could he have found the moral courage and strength to do what he did that day? And this is his answer. I'd like to thank my mother and father for trying to instill in me the difference between right and wrong. We were country people. I was born and raised in Stone Mountain, Georgia, and we had very little. But one thing we did have was the golden rule. My parents taught me early, do unto others what you would have them do unto you. That's why I did what I did that day. It's hard to put certain things into words. You're going to have to make many decisions in your life. Please make the right decisions, because we're depending on you, he told the graduates. God bless you all.